Is it upside down? I can't tell.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true.
Good point, F2.0. Oh, hi there. Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. If you've never listened to the show before, welcome. If it's your fourth time listening to the show, you're starting to form a habit. In addition to providing entertaining and informative photography-related information, I also go on adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. Right now, the crew and I are visiting the Orion's Belt Museum to find some inspiration for our next project. You might think that would be a museum in the vicinity of the Orion's Belt and the Orion constellation, but nope, it's actually a museum of artwork made entirely out of belts formerly owned by a guy named Orion. Anyway, speaking of inspiration, on this episode of the podcast, we're talking with photographer Zoe Rain about how to find inspiration and stick to your artistic vision. That conversation right after the break. I mean, man, how many belts does one person need? Attention photographers, it's time to protect your business with the Nerdy Photographer's contract templates. Whatever type of photography you do, contracts are essential to safeguarding you, your clients, and your business. With the Nerdy Photographer's easy-to-use templates, you'll have all the coverage you need, no legal jargon required. From weddings to portraits, even when you're hiring an associate photographer or second shooter, we've got you covered with ready-made, customizable, and professionally crafted contracts designed specifically for photographers. Don't leave your business unprotected. Get the Nerdy Photographer's contract templates today and shoot with peace of mind. Visit nerdyphotographer.com and get yours today. Hello, and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett, and I'm here today with photographer Zoe Rain. Zoe, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Before we get started, I'm going to roll the dice breaker, and it's a 2. Who is a fictional character you would not want to be friends with?
Oh, shoot. God, I don't know. That's a hard one. Can we do another?
Sure. We're going to roll again. That's fine. 14. Okay. Dream dinner party. Who are your 3 guests?
Oh, Obama for sure. Wow, my brain's going to just kill me today. It's going to be the day that my brain doesn't work. Maybe Annie Leibovitz. And
living or dead?
I thought you were asking. I would like them alive. And let's see. Johnny Cash.
Nice. The Man in Black to round it out. Now, I'm curious if that has to do something with your origins as a music photographer at all, or just a hankering for Johnny Cash.
Yeah, no, I think I watched Walk the Line in like 2nd grade and just like fell in love with his whole aesthetic. I mean, it's definitely influenced like my personal style and fashion.
Not that people can't notice this, but you are dressed all in black right now.
Yes, I am. It looks like I'm going to a funeral. Yeah, but I mean, at that time, I had being a photographer wasn't even on the radar. But who knows?
Now, from looking at your work, and I'm really kind of taken. The first thing that like sort of hits me is that you really have like each shoot has a very definite style. And as a photographer, where do you typically start drawing inspiration when you're planning a shoot?
I really love to just look at other people's work. And I use Pinterest a lot. It's a great like way to kind of have a starting point and then fall down like the rabbit hole of where it leads you. And then kind of, I like to compile like a mood board for a specific shoot and then go into the section where it's like, add more things that are like this, kind of just like play and see where it leads. And then I have so many just folders of like folder for color, folder for posing, a folder for product. And so it's just a great way to like compile all those ideas so I can kind of
You cut out there for a second. Your audio cut out for a second.
Might just have to use. Is it okay if I use?
Yes, that's fine. I just didn't hear the last. You said you were talking about color, folder for.
Yeah, so I just have a bunch of different collections of inspo photos that are a great way to reference.
I don't know what's happening, but every time you go to say whatever that sentence is, your audio cuts out.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. Technology is not my friend.
Whatever you were saying, it just like you kept cutting out like every time you're.
I was swearing aggressively, so maybe that was.
Oh, that's fine. You can swear on this show. There's no bleeping out. Well, we just throw up the this is for adult audiences only warning label on and let people know that there's some 4-letter words. So you just go down the Pinterest rabbit hole to start out with, and then work your way.
Yeah, just having a collection of different folders to reference, depending on kind of what the shoot is, or if I'm wanting to explore something different with color or light. It's just good to have all those kind of in a central place to be able to reference.
So you're talking about putting together like a mood board or a vision board for the shoot. Like what then is your process for narrowing that down? Like once you've got all of that stuff together and you've got like, it's in the same way when I'm doing it, when I have a shoot and I have like pulled all this inspiration together and I've just kind of got like everything. And like you said, like I've got like sort of like buckets for each thing for color, poses, wardrobe, whatever it is. How do you then like start narrowing things down to have like, like more of a crystallized vision for your shoot?
Yeah. I think once I've like compiled a general idea of a kind of a large swath of images, I use Canva just to create like treatments and things like that. And so, that's a great way to like narrow down. And even if it's okay, this is the lighting, or this is the specific editing we're going to be doing, and like, or these are inspo, not necessarily for how the photos are going to look, but just like styling or all those types of things. Having that, just picking and choosing. I think I've learned over the years, like I would come into shoots with so many ideas and be like, okay, these are like 6 different lighting setups we could do, and like that aren't necessarily as cohesive as they should be. And I think over the years, I've learned that like less is more. And even if it's like, this is our one inspo shot, you can play with that and have a whole shoot just around that, instead of having to be like, okay, this is our pink setup. And this, it just overcomplicating it is never, hasn't worked in my favor.
Yeah, I find that helps when you're dealing with a client. Clients, it confuses them. Yeah. When you come in with too many options for them, and they're like, they feel kind of like, they're like, I don't know what I want. And that's part of your job as like the photographer, is working with the other creative elements, obviously on the shoot, like coming in there and having like a narrower vision so that we can move forward. When you're working, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add that, it's even when I sometimes will have shoots where I ask other people to give me any inspo shots they have, and they'll send a bunch of different images. And then I realize, okay, we all look at pictures differently. They might be looking at it just because they like how this person looked in their outfit. And I'm looking at it from, okay, it's lit this way. And then, well, that's lit very differently. So, what are we talking about within this image that we're specifically aspiring to,
Right. What is it from that inspiration image that they really like? And then having a conversation to like, this was where I was going to go next, was like, how do you align like what your idea is for the shoot with what your client, whether it's, an individual, whatever, or it's a brand, whoever it is, aligning it with the client's vision for what they want from the shoot, like finding out those things. You like sit down and have a conversation with them and go over all those inspiration things and go over your board and their stuff, or is this like a back and forth process? How do you work with the clients to kind of like make that vision cohesive so that everybody's on the same page?
Right. I think that really comes down to having really clear and well thought out treatments. And a lot of the time, like for larger, commercial gigs, you're maybe being triple bid and you're not necessarily getting to be sitting in front of the client. So you really have to rely on your treatment to communicate exactly where you're at and what you're thinking. And so I just think with trying to keep it very clear of like, okay, this is just the lighting. Don't look at anything else. Don't look at like, I know we're shooting whatever, women, and these are all photos of men. It's not literally the photos we're taking, but this is just how we're going to light it. That's a page. And then, okay, this is the color treatment. These are not necessarily the subject matter we're shooting, but like, just look at the color. This is, or that post-processing, whatever it is. And just trying to really clarify what about what they're looking at is what they need to be looking at.
Oh, communication is such a key to like understanding, like setting expectations and just kind of like making sure that everybody, like when you're dealing with people, I don't know about you, but like a lot of the times, like when I'm dealing with corporate stuff, I don't do as much like brand things as you do. But when I'm dealing with corporate clients, people don't know even how to. There's no like creative team who's like, they have some sort of vocabulary, like a shared vocabulary with you that they can use. And they're just like, I don't know, make it artsy, or like something like that. And you're just like, what does that mean? We need to like,
they don't know what they want until they see it, or they know what they don't want, which is
more often the case. They know what they don't want to have.
Yeah. And I feel that even like going into a hair cutter, like that is the best way I probably can relate my clients to me, because I don't know any of the lingo. I don't know like what these types of cuts are or how you would do this or what, like how to even describe it. And so I come into that feeling very like, disabled in a way of like not having the tools to be able to even communicate what I want. I know what I don't want maybe, and that's sometimes all you give, but trying to find a way to meet in the middle so that you're educating them and you both feel like you have the tools and you're on the same page.
I think that's something that a lot of people could stand to learn, is like the patience to like communicate with clients and like understand that they don't understand necessarily all the things that you know, because you've been doing this and this is your job. Like this is like something you are very well versed in. My wife likes to say this about like weddings when I do mostly a wedding photographer. And she'll say, you've done this hundreds and hundreds of times. They've never done it before. So you need to like talk to them, like understanding that they've never done this, and, like use your, like, don't get upset when somebody doesn't know the terminology that is just second nature to you. And that's
it's your job to be the educating them. And
right.
That's part of it.
Yeah, and whatever type of photography it is, whether it's portraits or brand work or commercials or whatever the case may be, like and even in each of those niches, there's different, vocabulary and like language that we use. I think that most photographers, there's a shared language for photography, but like there's different things that you have to understand. If you're doing a brand shoot, you have to understand like marketing vernacular and like what they're going for, so that you are creating images that fit their brand.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, you could take the most gorgeous photo, but like if the bottle logo is covered up, like it's unusable. It doesn't matter.
Right. Or the color scheme doesn't match their brand colors. And you're just like, they're like, well, we can't use this. This is going to remind somebody of some other brand because that's their color. And, like understanding those types of things, I think that's something that there are a lot of photographers who think they know what branding means. And like, until they really get into the like real specifics, especially when you're on like a shoot with a brand, like it comes down to like choices in font. It comes down to, all of these very granular sorts of things that are become very important.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it's really important to have lots of hands on deck. I think for those things, like I can only be focused on so much, and like working with the client, like with the models and the lighting, and like there's so many things already going on in my brain that I'm not going to see like the shirt that needs to be like adjusted, or like the the product is now a little askew. Like that's just not possible without more eyes on set to be specifically kind of have that specific job in mind.
That's why you have a creative director or a stylist or somebody on set for things like that. But like, understanding just the terminology, like when we're all like trying to communicate with our clients, super important. So when you're talking about like having a lot of different people working on a shoot, like how do you go about, like, do you take like a leadership role in that, and like saying like, okay, let's, who's gonna be, like, obviously I'm in charge of capturing images, but like, are you like saying like, okay, I need you to watch out for things like the product and make sure that the product is thing, or you just kind of like expect that to happen, or were you like having that conversation? I'm sure that you deal with some people over time, and like you build a relationship, but like when you're working with someone for the first time, like what is that sort of discussion before the shoot, or as you're setting up for the shoot, like what is that like? I mean, you're divvying up responsibilities.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like a wild majority of the work that I do, especially kind of more creative or smaller, whether it's musicians or artists, like I might be the only one there. Like, I think that has been something that I've had to learn. Like, starting out, you might not have the portfolio or the resources, or feel like you can kind of ask other people to help you on something. And so I think a lot of the time, like I was all trick pony, moving lights and doing all this and getting really burnt out and realizing like this just isn't possible. Like you just need people watching your back and helping you. And so like to learn to ask help is like the first step. And even when I, opened up my studio and I had a couple of guys that kind of were working on a lot of projects with me, there was definitely a learning curve of realizing like I can't expect them to know or to be aware of this. Like I really had to delegate out responsibilities. It's like, okay, I need you to be right next to me and like watch if I need a lens changed, or like I need you to be specifically next to me. The other person, I need you to be like farther out dealing with lights or looking at like usually a stylist at that point there's expectations of certain people that, naturally come into place. Like stylists are usually looking for hair and like, that's their specific job.
Yeah. They're hyper aware of those things.
Right. But I think, learning to like delegate and really think through like, okay, what are the things that I do need? And how do I make sure that that's clear to my team so that, they have parameters of what is expected of them?
I think that's one of the hardest things. I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years. It's still one of the hard things for me to do is to delegate to other people. Like, because there's just sort of this feeling in my head that I know exactly what I want and how do I communicate that. And maybe that's something that I just have trouble with, is communicating those needs or whatever. But finding the strength to know when I need help and say, all right, I need somebody here to do lights. I need somebody here to be the stylist. I need someone here to just like, make sure that like to hold the boom, like with the light on it. And while we're out on the street shooting or something like that, like, I need someone to do this or stand behind me and make sure I don't back up into traffic or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, all important roles.
Really important role.
It takes more prep work and communication to then be able like to train people or have people know what you mean. And like, even like, okay, when I say tilt or pan or feather or up, down, like we need to have these cues so that I can efficiently communicate with you versus just being like, fuck it, I'm just gonna, it's faster to just
do it myself because you don't understand me.
But then ultimately it's not in the long run because I'm running around. So like taking that time to make sure that you have a language to communicate. And I think that's a great part about like the film sets, where, especially with union, like people have their specific jobs, and like, if you're not grip, you're not allowed to touch the stamp. Like, it's very much like, this is you can't do that. Like, and it's taboo. And so it's a great way to just like, no, you need to like rely on people and like learn how to communicate what you need because it's not your department.
Yeah. And I think that as time goes by, and this is something that I get, I don't know about you, I get tons of emails, people asking to like, can I just come in and assist you? And can I come on a shoot with you and like do this? And I'm like, I need you to know my language. I need to like, I can't like, we can do something else. We can figure something else out where maybe you can like audition or whatever we want to call it, like try out to see if this is going to work. But I can't just bring you on a paying job without having any idea what your you
don't know like where my lights are, like how I, there's so much that it goes into it. And like I had an intern about a year, 2 years ago, and it was actually really great to be able to say, okay, here, you're going to listen to my assistants who know my gear, has worked with me. You're going to shadow them. They're going to teach you how to do it. And so then because I have trained them, then that energy goes into them being able to train other people. So like it does like snowball into being efficient, but it does take like that initial
investment,
help and investing, in people to start that.
You have to invest in the time to make that process work. I think that the hurdle for a lot of people is they don't want to spend that time. They see it as kind of like, oh, like what am I getting out of this? I'm not making any money out of this, whatever. Whereas it's building the skill sets and the shorthand, like just having a shorthand with people, no matter like what type of photography I'm doing, if I'm working with other people and if we can just like say like, oh, hey, like you were saying, like pan, feather, whatever, like I need to, to nudge this way or whatever, like something that you just understand each other. And I have assistants and, second shooters who work with me. Like sometimes we don't even need to say anything. I just like make a little hand motion and they're like, exactly.
That's the ideal. Or they immediately know that. I saw a great video of like a photographer that her assistant was so on point that she was like kind of in a scrunched position trying to get down, and her assistant just like slid an apple box under her and she just was like sat, like they just were working in tandem. Like ultimately that's the goal of just people knowing what I need before I even have to ask for it.
Right. And it's just that familiarity comes with, time spent together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that there's I don't know, in the wedding industry here, photography industry in New York City, Northern New Jersey, there's a lot of people who are just like rushing to like, I just want to be at the top. I just want to be like, they join this part of the photography world. And they're like, I just, like, I want to be like, I want to get hired and do my own thing, or I want you to hire me as an assistant or a second photographer. And you're like, well, you need to like climb up this ladder before I'm like putting because there's also that whole thing of like, whatever this person is doing on a shoot with your client reflects on you. And
100%.
So there's we have to build that trust, that I trust that you're going to show up, you're going to behave professionally. You know what you're doing. Like seriously, if you show up and you don't know what you're doing, you make me look really bad.
Yep.
So like all those things, all that time spent creating that team, and as the head of the team or whatever, like you might have multiple people who perform the same sorts of jobs, and you hire people as they're available for your shoot or whatever is going on. But like you said, spending that time with them is invaluable because that's what it pays off later. It cuts down on the time for the shoot. It makes the shoot run smoother. The client is really impressed by like how smoothly your team works together. Right. And like, they're like, oh, this is it's like a well-oiled machine.
Right. And you have to, it's come up a lot as well. Like people just wanting to just assist and you just know that they're very, very green. And also just wanting to be paid at rates that I pay my assistants who have been doing this for 12 years. Like I sorted weddings in high school for like $6 an hour and like sat in a basement and just looked through tens of thousands of wedding images. And some people think they don't want to do that. That's how I learned everything. Like it feels very like Mr. Miyagi. You're like, why, this is all right. I'm ready for the next thing. But like, no, that's my brain was literally like cataloging how this was lit, how this was posed. Like it was so helpful, and yet it's very like not sexy.
No.
But those hours, you've got to do the grunt work.
Yeah, you develop that sort of, again, it's a visual vocabulary from just like seeing images over and over and over again. Yeah, everybody wants to jump to the sexy work and be like, I want, like, I'm running my own thing and doing whatever. And sometimes they would have been helped by spending a little time doing the grunt work and learning those things. Like I have to say, like, there were times where I definitely like took a step too far up where I didn't know, like I was not prepared for where I got, and like had a kind of a rude awakening. And I was like, oh, I should have. And then I spent, some time like, what do I need to learn? I need to learn more about lighting. What I'm going to do? I'm going to just like volunteer to help someone whose lighting I really like. And I'm going to spend some time with them. Like, I'm not going to expect to get paid. I'm just here to like watch and, like I will carry equipment. Like, because I'm not going to be because like you said, I'm not your assistant because we've never worked together before. I don't know your language, but I'm going to watch. I'm going to learn. I will carry all of the heavy stuff for free and do whatever you need me to do. Like, and I will go and get coffee for people or whatever you need me to do, just so I can watch and learn a little bit, and then like add that to my toolbox, and then I can move up. Yeah, like I spent so much time culling weddings.
Yeah,
just like hours.
Like soul killing work, especially when it's not even your photos. Like,
yeah,
the most boring thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, I worked for another studio for a while. Like I was just like, it was the same sort of thing. I wanted to see the business side of it. I wanted to learn how like a successful studio did the business side of stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go work in this studio and be like studio manager and call and retouch and do all of those things, but also like be part of like meetings with clients and like scheduling things and how is everything set up for taxes and all that stuff that I didn't have any clue how to do. So I'm going to sit down and like learn this stuff. And yeah, it just like, it crushes you. Like it crushes the creative side of you because you are not doing the things that you're like, oh, this is what I want to do. But like, if you learn to do it right, you end up spending less time doing that stuff and more time doing the fun stuff. And you can also teach people to do those things so that they can do that for you.
Right.
And you don't have to spend time doing it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's so imperative to find a mentor. And like, obviously easier said than done. And I was very lucky, like to have someone invested in me at such a young age, and have their career also take off. Because, when I met them, they were just doing weddings, and, ended up getting into music and then music videos. And like, so I was able to climb my career with them as that transition happened. But for a lot of years, it's like people want to come in and be the main singer, and now you got to like be the stage crew, and then you got to just be a backup singer.
Right.
Your time will come, but you don't want to be the main singer if you're going to like freak out when the mic goes out. Like you need to watch. Much better to have someone else make mistakes or make your mistakes in a less high stakes situation than you go up and pretend you're the star and not know what to do in a, when there's 100,000 people looking at you.
Right. I think that there's also a movies, and we've sort of been like, I don't know, programmed to think like, oh, like, you're going to come from obscurity and all of a sudden like people don't want to put in. And I worry about people listening to this and going like, oh, it's just like, this is a gatekeeping type of conversation. No, it's just like, I'm happy to share the knowledge with you and let you know what you need to know to succeed. But you also have to like climb that ladder, because there's sometimes like things that if you take 5 steps up, even though you might be able to get like, here's what someone told me that was, it's not that anybody can't like press the button and, get an occasional good image. It's being consistent.
Yeah.
That makes somebody like a professional, makes somebody good, behaving professionally, as well as being, like charging money and doing this on like that scale, but like being so consistent that people can depend on you to do the job, whatever it is. And that is what matters. It's not that just like you get people who are like, oh man, if I had that camera, I could take X shot, whatever. Like, yeah, it might take you 5 hours to get that shot though. Whereas I can walk in.
Let's go in a rainstorm. What are you going to do now? Like, okay, let's break all the equipment now. You know, I think it's like that. You're a problem solver is like 90% of my job. And the only way that I'm good at that is I've made every mistake in the book. And by doing that in lower stakes jobs or by, my own personal shoots where, I've forgotten the memory card. I've had like people not show up. I've had lights break. I've had, everything that could possibly happen, or even just in growing my work and having something in my head and then kind of it being like a dark environment and trying to work with flash and making the mistakes of, oh, well, these are really blown out, or I should have, you have to fall and fall and fall to get better. Like, and that's so like cliche, but I am the culmination of all of the mistakes I've made over the last 15 years.
You have to be willing to fail.
And you have to fail.
Right. Like you have to be willing to do it because I think there's too much pressure, or people put too much pressure on themselves, or they think that everything has to be perfect every time. And yeah, you have those like personal shoots, whatever. So those are set up so where you're pushing yourself and you fail at something, or you didn't get what you thought you were going to get. Maybe you get something else, but you always learn things from those mistakes, from the accidents, from the sudden change in the weather, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, now it's snowing. What do I do with, like, I knew how to like handle, I knew how to handle rain, but snow is a whole other thing with reflecting light and craziness, especially if you're using flash, that, I've never dealt with before. So now I'm learning a new skill, and those sorts of things like open you up creatively and like help you add those tools to your toolbox so that you can be consistent. And when like something goes wrong on a shoot, you're just like, yeah, whatever, dealt with this before.
Right, dealt with it before.
One of those things I always tell my clients is like, I've done, whatever, if it's a wedding client, I'm like, I've done 800 of these. It's really hard to faze me. Like I've seen it happen. I've had to sew a dress back on somebody before. So like,
and now you come, I remember when I did weddings, I have hairspray, I have bobby pins. I have because you just learn the thing.
You make a pack of stuff that you consistently have used. There's, Band-Aids, bobby pins, sewing kit, a Tide stain stick, like whatever. Yeah. There's just like things.
Publish that you got to have people publish their kits. Those are, are good ones.
So moving forward, like back to like the inspiration part of this, what do you do? Like if you're feeling like blocked, because I know that I certainly have hit those moments in my career where I just feel like I don't have the juice. I don't have the creative thing. I'm feeling uninspired. Do you have like go-to methods for reigniting your creativity, or for like getting yourself inspired to do something, or like, coming up with a shoot to do for yourself that like you think is going to, get it back for you, or like put you on the right path?
Yeah. I think COVID, I don't know if it was just like after 10 years and it just the timing happened, or, what it was, but I got so burnt out and I just didn't have the energy to do personal shoots. And I think it's really easy to get down on yourself and just do it. Right. But I also think there's such importance of like letting yourself rest and like maybe taking away that pressure. I think pressure is, that's like counterintuitive to creativity and play, right? Like being able to play and enjoy what you're doing is why the creative shoots are going to be successful. So taking a break, I think, is totally okay. Ingesting other types of art and media is great, like read books, watch movies, like go to art museums and look at paintings. And I think just giving yourself time. I do find that it's kind of like working out. It's like you don't want to do it, but once you go do the creative shoot, it will help inspire you. But that can be really hard to do when you're just not inspired at all.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of like, when they're talking about you have to do something for a certain amount of time before it becomes a habit again. And you're just like, and I think it's especially bringing up the working out sort of thing, like to get that, like you're like, I don't want to do it again. But then like you do it a certain number of times and you start to get the endorphins and you start getting addicted to the endorphin rush of exercising. And you're like, okay, yeah, and I'm looking forward to it now. And I think it's the same. It's very similar to that muscle in a way, like that creative muscle in your brain, whatever, where you get back into doing it regularly. And like you said, you don't like rush into it and be like, oh, I'm going to do this enormous project. Like when I'm feeling uninspired, because then you're setting yourself up for failure. Yeah. Just do like simple little things and you build your way up to doing stuff, which is why I've had to do personally from the same thing after the pandemic. I was just like, oh, I don't have it. I just don't like have like this, like whatever is clicking in my brain. I needed some other outside ideas until like, then I came up with a project. I'm like, this is going to be a little project that I do every month. And then it's going to, and that has built over up to like, now being able to do like more things and just be like, all right, yeah, I feel good. Like I feel inspired to like do something. And like you said, I wholeheartedly agree. Go and consume other forms of art.
Right.
Listen to music. Go to a museum.
Right. And just, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Like it'll come. And I think that's a great point. And that's something that I've, had to work around too, is like the pressure to step up or, go bigger and bigger every time, which is just will lead to burnout. Like I think simplify and just go and have a very simple or very quick personal shoot. It doesn't have to be like this grandiose thing that puts pressure on yourself. Like just work the muscle again, for sure.
So I've got a question. When you're doing a shoot, how do you personally like balance like the technical considerations, like lighting and everything else with like the creative stuff? And do you like plan the whole thing in advance? Do you leave room for like spontaneous stuff to happen? Like I know like other photographers do things differently. Like I personally like to like, let's do like the set thing first. Feel like we got the shots that we want, and then we can play and do some other stuff later. How do you handle that personally?
Yeah. I mean, if it's not a personal shoot, that's usually how I, get the shots that you need and then play is always a great way to do that, or get, the shots and then tweak something or so that you have something for your own portfolio, is a great way to just get those images without, the pressure of, but also getting what you need. But for my personal shoots, I think it depends. I like to lean into just trusting, like, I don't necessarily have like, okay, I want this exact makeup and I want these exact outfits. I probably will have like a color palette or like a general style. But I tend to focus more on like location and color. But yeah, a lot of my favorite, like I found personal shoots that I find most successful or that the images really feel the best, or like very small team and very kind of on the fly, like bring some options. We're going to walk around this area, or, this is kind of, we're going to start with this lighting setup and see how it looks. And maybe, we decide scrap it. It's not, or we're going to change the color because you brought this color and this works better. Like, I think just trial and error and kind of placing them in the scene and then tweaking, just
as you go along,
following your gut.
Yeah. Like going, like, as you go along, like, oh, I'm going to, let's swap this for something else and see where it goes from there. Makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes the shoes, they look really great, in the store, like you put them on and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. It's not popping when it comes to the photo. It's not hitting like the way you thought it was going to. Right. So what's a project or a photo shoot that you were particularly proud of, like the vision coming together, like as you imagined it, or was it something of a surprise how it came together? But it was in the end, it was something you were like particularly like, yes, this is it. This is it. Yeah. One of my last personal shoots, that I think it's been like, God, it's probably, I could look back at my Pinterest boards from, 10 years ago. I've been
kind of had this shoot in mind of a woman in a kind of a vintage, like grungy motel vibe. Those just like roadside, like probably people aren't doing a whole lot of sleeping in those spaces.
Well, the hourly motels.
Yeah, right. And like, and I finally was able to like make that come to fruition. And it was just me and my model, Caroline Blake. And I was shopping at vintage shops, like pulling clothes. My friend like donated his, I just went through his closet. And retrospectively, like I definitely should have had, I'm moving to LA, but I don't live here. So I don't have like the people I usually work with, like assistants on hand. And so I just was like, we'll make it super casual and make it work. But, so I was like running around doing lights, doing everything. But, that's how I like started out. And I think it allows like a really, a lot of playful interaction just with you and just a model, right? It just takes off the pressure and like lets you really just play. And yeah, I think those images are like some of my strongest I've ever shot. And it would just like, it all culminated really well because I kind of had my hands on everything, which, doesn't necessarily work as far as, time consistency, but it just evoked, it was just me. Like it
was 100% you. And you just like, it's that feeling of accomplishment when you're like, I did this. I am responsible for this. I understand that. I did a shoot I had models on aerialists equipment, and I did not realize how much work that was going to be.
Right. Yeah, that sounds a little complicated.
Yeah, it was super complicated. The lighting was just such a pain because I was like, and I had like things because I was like, oh, this is why I've never seen this before because it's really hard. But it worked out in the end. And I was like, so at the end of it, I was like, wow, this like, I overcame that challenge, which I thought I was prepared for, but was not. But then get put into the crucible of like, you're at the shoot and this is happening. And now I'm like, okay, all right, I can do this. I can make this happen.
Right. Well, it's always the bumps that are unexpected that you can't prepare for. That's the whole point of, you're like, all right, how are we going to make this work?
We'll make it happen. That's you get through it. So for photographers who are just starting out in photography, what advice would you give them about finding inspiration and like developing their vision for their photos?
Yeah, I mean, I think as cliche as it sounds, like just you shoot, you just got to shoot, you just got to keep shooting. And you don't have to necessarily come at it of like this pressure of, oh, how am I going to be different? Or like, what is my message or brand? Like that will evolve. Like it just will naturally develop by you gravitating towards things that you're inspired by. Like create images you want to look at. Don't create images of like, this is what I'm supposed to be shooting, or this is trendy, or just take pictures of things that you want to look at. And that's like really just, that's how, I don't know, people are like, how did you figure out your branding or style? And I'm like, I think I took photos of cool things. And I also like just through shooting shows, I think my color palette really developed through working with like stage lights, because it's very much color oriented, like contrasty, harsh light, like in maybe a grungier setting. And I think that's kind of evoked in now the work that I gravitate towards as well.
Live show photography, man, it teaches you so much.
Right. And it's very hard. Make it dark, make it different colors, and put someone in there that's running around, and then see how you do.
When I started, I was like shooting film. And that's how I I was like shooting film. I would have to take like 3 camera bodies with me, all with different film speeds.
It's incredible. Like looking at some of the greats that were photographing, like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles on film. It's incredible.
Yeah, I look at that stuff. We talk about inspiration. Like we're going to go back a second and talk about inspiration. I have just like 2 shelves full of photography books of different types of things like that really just inspired me that there's not things that I photograph, but like one of them is like Who Shot Rock and Roll, the book. Who like, just like I look at that and I'm just like,
Yeah.
like the live show shots people got back then. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Yeah, but like I think that whole thing of like just keep shooting, and it does seem like a cliche that people say that, but like when you take the photos and then you start seeing the things that speak to you in your own photos, and you're taking the types of images, like you said, that inspire you, and you're like that's what helps keep your creative fire alive, is that you're taking the photos that mean something to you and not trying to like, I'm going to be the trendy photographer. I'm just going to do the thing that's trendy that everybody likes, or I'm just going to do this one thing. You find it takes time to find yourself. Again, go back to what we were talking about kind of at the beginning, where people just sort of want to start at the top. You have to like put the work in and put the time in to like kind of to find yourself. Because that's what makes it important. That's what makes it worth it. If you didn't jump to the end, like I can, pick up a mystery novel and like read the last chapter and find out who did it. But
right. Yeah. Where's the fun in that?
Right. And you didn't really you didn't get to explore all the stuff in between, right, and figure things out. And maybe you would have figured it out differently. It maybe would have meant more to you, when you go through it that way. You spent the time on it.
Right. Well, and I think that's the fun part of being able to like explore that with there being less pressure. Like I think there's more and more pressure I put on myself of like, always has to be leveling up or being this caliber. And I didn't have that when I was able to just like take my friends out in high school and like, let's play around in front of a graffiti wall. Like, this is fun.
Right.
And trust me, like if you think, oh, I want to be at the top, like the top will keep moving. Don't worry. Like we will forever feel that way.
It's it's always a moving target.
Yeah. So don't worry. It's going to just keep moving. So you can take your time going up the stairs.
Hey there, listeners. It's time for what I like to call a little shameless self-promotion. After years of planning and trying to get this project done, I have finally launched my online print shop. Yes, you can buy prints of my photos. That way you can support a small business and the podcast at the same time. Just head over to the link in the episode notes and check it out. There are photos from Scotland, Italy, France. There's wildlife photos. There are amazing flower photos. And there are photos of the city I called home for 20 years, New York City. So many pictures to choose from, and there are more coming as I get the time to process them and edit them and get them online. You can choose from fine art prints, metallic prints, acrylic prints, and there are tons of sizes to choose from, whatever you might need. So, what are you waiting for? Bring some beauty to your walls and some inspiration to your life with a print from my fine art print shop. Just click on the link in the episode notes. Go do it.
Hey. And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. This is always death.
Did you know that when you receive a kidney transplant, the doctors usually leave the original kidney inside you?
No, gross. Why?
Because the old kidney is only removed if it poses a significant danger to the patient. Otherwise, taking it out, like you have to like sew up other connections to like arteries and things. So they just leave it in there. So there are a number of people out there who are just walking around with 3 kidneys. Just one of them doesn't work.
Wow. That's wild. Does it like shrivel up and die, or it just stays like hanging out? I
have no idea. That's my guess is if there's something wrong with it, but I guess it probably would it wasn't doing the work that it needed to do in the first place, which is why you got the transplant. So yeah, who knows? Maybe it's like just doing a little tiny bit of work. You might be getting like 200, like a 110%, where just because that all one is just doing a little bit of work.
I wonder how much a kidney weighs. You just permanently got like a little pound on there.
Who knows? I'm sure there are people on the black market who can tell you exactly how much a kidney weighs.
Google search again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't want to end up on that watch list. How much does a kidney weigh?
The things that I Google, I'm on a mental watch list.
Zoe, thank you so much for being on the show. I really, really had a good time talking with you. Where can people find you?
Thanks. It's been great. I'm really happy to be here as well. You can look at my work on rainstudio.com or find me on Instagram, Zoe Rain Photo.
Awesome. You're more than welcome to come back anytime.
Love that. Great to meet you.
And we're back. Many thanks to Zoe Rain for joining us. Be sure to check the episode notes and follow Zoe and see more of their work. And while you're in the following mode, be sure to follow The Nerdy Photographer. Yeah, we're on a whole bunch of social media platforms. Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Reddit, and now Blue Sky at The Nerdy Photo. All one word, no underscores, dots, or dashes, at The Nerdy Photo. I do regular live stream photography Q&A sessions on Instagram and YouTube, so be sure to follow on those platforms if you want to ask me some of your photography-related questions or tell me what you would like to hear on future episodes of the podcast. If you leave a review for the podcast or tell a friend about the show, you might get a special prize.
Should I stay or should I go now?
Oh, we are definitely going. Hey, put that back. You don't need a belt. You don't even wear pants. Until next time, everyone, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.